Hey, frenemies, this week's episode is our roster or not episode, digging into the waiver wire. Welcome back, frenemies, episode 90. I'm your host, Chris, and to my right, the commish, Sean. We're absent Ryan today. He's in a recording studio, just not ours.
Yeah. Being a rock star.
He's a rock star, living out the dream there. But you know what? We're back, and we're ready to jump into talk about Week 10, looking back at Week 9. And we got a pretty cool episode that's really going to give you some tools and names for waiver wires, which right now you're making playoff push.
Yep.
I love what we're about to talk about.
Well, and there's enough data now that we can really decide whether these players are worth hanging on to and make some calls on guys coming up. So
Yeah. But before we get into that, let's go into our regular fantasy reactions. Sean, did you watch Sunday Night Football?
unfortunately,
Did
yes.
you watch it with like the rest of us looking
Well,
for?
I say unfortunately, but those type of games have made me happy my whole life because watching Tom Brady get demolished is just a rare occurrence that I enjoy.
There was so much fantasy relevancy on the Tampa Bay offense.
Yeah.
So a lot of us were watching, and it became extremely disappointed because Tom Brady looked bad. It was play calling or whatever was going on.
It was
awful.
Yeah, it was well done defense by the New Orleans Saints. But the game plan they came up with, which always works with Tom Brady, is if you can get him uncomfortable off that spot early, then it throws him off. He's not a move out of the pocket passer. That's the one thing that Tom Brady doesn't do. He's the GOAT. I have to give it to him. But when it comes to getting off of his platform, it's not going to be pretty.
But to calm you guys down, he had a bad game against Saints Week 1, and then this past Sunday, everyone else, he's been pretty darn good.
Yep, and I think they'll get it together. My takeaway from this game for the Bucs was really Antonio Brown. It's kind of what we were hoping was going to happen. Is he was open, he was targeted, he looked good. That's pretty much all you could ask for to see from that first game. And then on the other side of the ball, Michael Thomas was. I know it's disappointing. I have Michael Thomas and I started him. You got your 6-7 points, but they were demolishing them. It was a complete blowout. They didn't need Michael Thomas. To me, the win was he made it out of the game healthy and he played the whole game. So
I think the Bucs set the record with the most rushing attempts or the fewest rushing attempts.
Yeah, I think it was 4 or 5.
Yeah, and that counted the kneel downs at the end of the game. So that was crazy.
Arians, I think, was a little bit to blame for that.
Oh, he was a lot to blame for that game plan. All right, so let's talk about Josh Allen. A bounce back game. He had a couple of struggling weeks. Seattle's defense gave him this platform just to bounce off, and those guys looked good on Sunday.
Yeah, my takeaway more from this game is, we already knew this, but play your players against the Seahawks.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that defense is so bad. Somebody had asked me recently about my playoff or my Super Bowl pick, and I said I really think that Seattle's going to do it. The way Russell Wilson is playing, he just can't be stopped. Well, the way he's going to be stopped is by that defense, because if he doesn't score at an amazing clip, they're just going to give up so many points.
Yeah.
That's what scares me about the Seahawks. But for fantasy, it's fantastic. You're going to continue to get great Seahawks production because they're going to always be in a shootout.
Yeah.
And on top of that, if you're playing Seattle, start them up.
And, in one of my Yahoo leagues, I traded Josh Allen before this weekend.
Ooh.
I should have waited another week. I could have sold higher.
For sure.
I still think he's going to have a rough playoff, picture. But, oh, my goodness, did I mess that up. I could have been selling for much higher.
Over 400 passing yards was the big thing. Holy crap.
That's a big one. All right, so we had Christian McCaffrey return, but he got hurt again. He's day-to-day with a shoulder. Looked like maybe an AC sprain.
I was going to say day-to-day is the good news.
Yeah.
The fact that came out, there was more of a concern, like you said, with an AC sprain that could be a couple weeks. But
over 30 fantasy points against the Chiefs.
he lit it up. It's kind of what we were hoping was going to happen. They would just plug him back in and he would be Christian McCaffrey again, which he was. Monitor the situation. If you drop Mike Davis, shame on you. You should not have done so. That's a guy that needs to be rostered everywhere, even if you don't own CMC.
Yeah, handcuff him on your bench. There.
Absolutely.
And then Dalvin Cook, the number one running back right now.
My boy.
Your boy.
Your boy.
I traded to you 2 years ago. Again,
it's probably the one thing we talk about the most on this podcast.
All the time. But I did win the championship that year. But that trade meant nothing. All I did was give away the future.
Yeah.
But Dalvin Cook, he just keeps on cooking. Over 200 yards. You can see that going almost every week while he's healthy.
Yeah. It's hard to argue that he's not the number one running back you want to have with what CMC is going through. So.
Yep. And then Name I thought I'd never say. Jake Luton, Jacksonville quarterback.
Luton.
He was a top 25 scorer out of in half PPR leagues. This guy ran one in, threw a few touchdowns.
Yeah, and the takeaway is it's a fun name to say, Jake Luton. It's not like you're picking up Jake Luton. We don't need to discuss maybe in a 2 QB league, that's a possibility.
He's got one more week, and then I think Minshew's coming back after that injury.
So that's, I guess, more of the discussion, and it will, what I was going to move to was the pieces are more what we're going to talk about, but do you think that if Luton puts up another performance like this and say they win the game, I don't know who they play next week, but if they win that game...
Green Bay, I think.
Is it Green Bay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So they're not going to win that game. No. But say they put up a fight against Green Bay and they keep it close and he looks fantastic again, because he looked fantastic. Do you think there's a QB decision to be made? I mean, they've already been talking about benching Minshew.
No, I think they bench Luton, let Minshew go at it again. If he lays an egg, then they can swab Luton.
Basically what happened with Nick Foles last year.
Yeah, just see where he goes.
For the pieces, I think it's about the same. This week it was fantastic because you saw Chark come to life, but I honestly don't think that it's all of a sudden they now have a great quarterback and they had a bad one before.
Oh, no.
So it's going to be about the same. James Robinson, he's amazing. Keep starting him.
Yes, he is. But all right, that's it for our fantasy reactions, and we're going to our party question.
Ian, would you like to go to a party in my pants?
No, Brick.
Ooh, well,
all right.
This week's party question was brought up kind of by our local league guys. We do our 757 podcast. We're gonna have a fun one doing a little celebrity doppelgangers with our league mates.
Yep.
One of them wanted us to talk about matching them up with Harry Potter characters. And then we found out...
Hold on. We're going to lose some listeners here if you make this statement.
So we just thought about, hey, what are the childhood movie series that Sean and I really enjoyed? And maybe you guys can chime in because we grew up mostly in the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, the thing I was going to say, or I thought he was going to say with the series is...
Well, I wasn't going to say because I didn't want to lose the 12 listeners we have.
I know. They know. They already know. We told them in the chat today. But Harry Potter, that's what sparked this conversation, is a childhood series you watched. We did not watch it.
Nope.
We were not allowed to watch it.
We weren't allowed to watch it.
So that's the protection we have to, can come at us. But
Detective mothers from witchcraft.
Yes. Anyway, so I'm going to throw it to you first here, Chris. A childhood series that just top of your list.
Oh, Goofy movie. The Goofy movie series.
And the second one held up?
Oh, I love the second one where he goes to college and the X Game things. I mean, that was big when we were growing up. I remember getting the X Game skates. But both of those movies I loved. Goofy was one of my favorite Disney characters growing up.
Yep.
My dad used to call me Goofy all the time because I was such a dork growing up, klutz and everything. So I love the Goofy movie series. Son Max, I loved his character and everything he had to go through. Goofy movie series was my childhood movie series.
Nice. And full disclosure here, I stole this one from Chris just because I couldn't find it. It was the right answer for me. So Goofy movie wasn't crazy high on my list, but Mighty Ducks.
Oh man.
So good of a series. And I want to ask this live because there is one right answer, and I want to know if he's going to say it at the same time that I do. So on 3, what is the best Mighty Duck movie?
Oh, movie?
Which movie of 1, 2, and 3?
Okay, ready.
Not only do you have to guess the right one, but you have to say it in the correct way. How do you say it? A Mighty Ducks movie.
Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. D2.
The Mighty Ducks.
Yes!
Yes!
Best friends forever.
USA. Then they flip on the Mighty Ducks.
They're actually all pretty fantastic. That's why it would be a series that I would definitely put high on the list because they all are really good. But D2, yeah.
Hey, quick little side note. I was having a Disney movie night with my girlfriend, and she was like, "Which movie do you want to watch?" And I was going through the Disney Plus app, and I was like, "Oh, obviously Mighty Ducks all the way." We ended up watching one of her Princess Diaries, or I actually liked to. I really found it fun.
Nothing wrong with Princess Diaries.
Great. Anne Hathaway was great back then too. She's great now. But I was like, "Oh, Mighty Ducks." She's like, "Which one?" I was like, "Well, I have to watch all 3. I can't just, I'm going to watch 3. I'm going to watch 2 as I go from 1 all the way through."
Yep.
She's like, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, "No, it's the best movie series of all time."
Yeah, it's great. All right, and then we're gonna
Segue from there.
yeah segue. I don't know how to segue from that. We're gonna do some roster or not. So that's kind of how you describe the beginning of the podcast here. That's the title of the show. We're just really gonna break down either players that you need to pick up to make these next runs, or the bigger question that I think I want to answer is are there people that you're holding on to that it's just time to let go?
Yeah, so we go the roster or not to our drop candidates. So let's talk about a few names that really made big splashes this week. All right, so should people believe in Curtis Samuel? He's been doing it for the last 3 games, averaging 14 points, 19 points, and 22. But do you believe in Curtis Samuel enough to pick him up off the waiver wires?
I definitely believe in him to pick him up off the waiver wire. Now, to make him a weekly starter, I think he's definitely more on that flex side, wide receiver 3. The bigger thing will probably be on Christian McCaffrey. If he misses a week, I feel a little more confident he'll get a couple more running or a couple more carries. But yeah, he's definitely, I don't think it's much of a question. He needs to be rostered. The good chance he's already rostered. I heard something this week saying I think he's like the 5th best wide receiver the last 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
So
some people like myself, we just can't stomach rostering him because
we do in the league. We roster Curtis Samuels.
It's so hard to believe in him week in, week out.
Yeah.
All right. Richie James out of San Francisco.
Who?
28.9 on Thursday night. He was the only thing working in San Francisco on Thursday night.
Well, they didn't have much to work with, so
Yes. With other receivers coming back, we think Ayuk and
Debo,
if his hamstring injury comes back, but they're both off COVID list.
Yep.
So and Bourne coming back as well. Do you think Richie James is just a flash in the pan?
I do. I mean, it's not a high passing volume offense. The only thing that I'll say is we don't really know how it's going to shake out with George Kittle being out for the rest of the season, most likely.
And Mullins at quarterback. We still got to get that feel back for him. Who are his favorite targets?
I don't know. I just don't have a lot of confidence, like I said, in the passing offense.
Okay.
So he's someone you could in a deep league. He's not a bad option to pick up and see what happens this week if you just have that empty bench spot. But he's definitely not somebody I'm prioritizing.
Yeah, I wouldn't roster him either. I'm gonna go. This I put this name in just
this
for
name,
you.
yes.
Kalen Ballage. He's with the Chargers
He
now.
was once the future of the Miami Dolphins backfield there.
Yep. So he ended up, with 15 points, which this was a very weird running back week. He was RB4 with 15 points.
Yeah, there was some bad. Dalvin Cook took all the RB points.
Yeah. So would you roster Kalen Ballage? There is some weird news out there about him going back to the practice squad.
Yep.
But I was explaining that to you pre-show that was just a weird way of how they could carry more guys on the roster.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean he won't even start this week. So
Right. So even with the blurred backfield with Justin Jackson, Joshua Kelly there, do you believe in Kalen Ballage for a pickup?
I think the big thing is Justin Kelly's injury.
Joshua Kelly?
No, I'm sorry. I
Justin
combined
Jackson.
them.
There you
Justin
go.
Jackson is the one that had, they're the same person.
Same person, basically.
They both aren't doing well. So Kalen Ballage, he looked good, which is weird because he hasn't looked good since he was drafted. Like he's just been a train wreck.
Yeah.
But unless one or both of those, I guess Eckler will definitely still be out. But that's kind of the thing is you're picking him up for maybe a week if you are picking him up. He's not somebody who's a depth piece. He looked pretty good. If Justin Jackson is out, then he's worth, a flyer. If you really need that spot start this week, you could throw him in there. But he's definitely... I'd put him in the middle. He's not quite Richie James level, but he's definitely not at the level of Curtis Samuel.
All right. So another running back here. We're going Duke Johnson.
So many
out of
hard
Houston.
questions, man.
Duke Johnson had 21 touches last weekend. With concussion protocol with David Johnson. We don't know when he's coming back.
That's the tough question I'm talking about. You have your Wednesday waivers that most likely go through, and we're not going to have any idea if the other D Johnson in Houston is going to be playing.
You look at it two ways here. If you got enough fab, if you're in a fab league, throw a few bucks there at the back end of your roster, see what happens if you need them, but probably go after someone else at the same time. Or, Sean, I'll ask you this. If you're in the old school waiver priority, right? No fab, just priority. Would
Get
you
out
waste?
of that. The first thing is don't do that anymore.
I had a question come in this morning. Someone texted me and say, "Hey, out of these running backs, who should I get? Need a streamer?
Who to prioritize?
Yeah, and then he's also, should I waste a waiver priority or wait for the first round of it and then pick him up later?" So I was like, "You're still in that type of league?"
Yeah.
But
so
would you waste or use a waiver priority on him?
I think,
Duke.
yeah, I would if I'm a team that really needs a start this week, and it's going to be a 50-50 chance that you're going to get him. If David Johnson doesn't play, he's an excellent start. Like he'll be an RB2 this week, I think.
Okay.
But you just don't know the answer to that. But like I said, if you're a team that just is, you don't have a running back to put in that slot, then you just got to take that chance, and I think it's worth taking.
Okay. Now let's go to the receiver here. Another one, Brashad Perriman.
Nope, move on.
All right. That was a fluke. All right. I put that at the end there. Real fluke there.
And then the second fluke here.
Yes. Irv Smith Jr.
Stole one of my
touchdown
Dalvin Cook
catches.
touchdowns.
Yes, he did.
It's funny how you can be a Dalvin Cook owner
Or
and
for-
still upset about lack of points.
Thielen owners were mad. Jefferson owners were mad. If you're that random Kyle Rudolph owner, to see Irv Smith get
Why
two
are you
touchdown
holding
catches.
Kyle Rudolph?
Yeah. So some people might jump on him just because he's going to be so highly ranked from this past weekend at the tight end thing if you're streaming tight ends. But let's go to the drop candidates.
Yeah, so
These are some tough names.
I'll say these are the harder ones. I'm actually we have a guy listed here that I'm gonna say for the end because he's the one that's the hardest.
Okay.
We'll start with the Ravens running backs. That's just a question I personally have. You've got Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Edwards seems to be getting the goal line work. J.K. Dobbins was his week to break out, and it did not happen.
Nothing happened.
He played a pretty good defense in Indianapolis. So I don't know, Chris, where are you at with these running backs? I mean, people are still if you don't have an IR spot, you may have been holding Mark Ingram. And I mean, at this point, are we holding on to him when he comes back? Does he even have his role, or is it just stay away?
You keep these guys.
Okay.
You probably don't start them. You probably
And they have a bad schedule coming up. That's another issue.
You'll look at maybe having one of them in the flex,
Yeah.
but I don't think you can drop them because you're going to have instant regret once
Yes.
you start seeing one of them pop around. So keep them if you can. Keep one of them.
So I would still order them barely J.K. Dobbins, Edwards, Ingram, which sounds crazy, but
And I would go Edwards, Ingram, Dobbins.
Okay.
That's where I would go.
Okay. Let's move on to your man MVS.
Yes, MVS, Valdez Scantling over there in Green Bay. I would drop him,
Yes.
especially if Al
You should.
Lazard is coming back this week, or even if he's coming back next week. You can find
Rogers
somebody.
has got to be fed up with him. I've seen
Yeah.
some plays where he just
And his stats are blown up because he had that one wide open touchdown, big one. And I bet Rogers was thinking he's going to drop this.
yeah.
He had a big old stare down. It was crazy watching that game.
Yep.
All right, Ryan Tannehill. Ryan, this is your not Ryan.
Ryan,
Sean.
I'm not Ryan.
I'm so sorry, Sean.
He was a Dolphin, so that you
Yes.
can make that association.
Your boy Ryan Tannehill have a couple of rough weeks, man. Would you drop him?
I think that if there is a better option on the waiver wire, I am at the point of willing to drop him. We're back to that idea of where people were more afraid to draft him this year because if the Titans don't need to throw the ball, they won't throw the ball. And that's what you saw happen last week. I think he had 12 pass attempts or something ridiculous.
It was horrible. But Tannehill drops back into what we call that streaming pool.
Exactly. And so, for this week, coming off bye, somebody might have dropped Carson Wentz. He plays the Giants. That's somebody I'd pick up and I probably would play over Tannehill, and I don't think he's worth a bench spot. Like, if you need to drop him, then drop him. If you're going to play him, then play him. But if you don't need to play him, he doesn't need to be on your roster.
Gotcha. I got another Dolphin, but this one hits me at home because I have him on almost every single one of my teams. Mike Gesicki, drop or keep?
It's a tough one because
It's a tight end position.
yeah,
isn't
it's the tight end position. So you're rolling the dice anyways with this. You could go on the fact that maybe Tua gets more and more involved with the tight end, but it just depends on what's on the waiver wire there for you. We'll kind of group this with the next guy, which is Jonnu Smith, and he's a guy that I think you can drop, but he's as likely to get a touchdown as any of these guys. The guy above these two that I would say that could be on waivers, similar to Carson Wentz, is Austin Hooper. He had that appendectomy, was on bye. People kind of have forgotten about him, but there's no more Odell Beckham there. There's targets that got to go somewhere, and he did have a good rapport with Baker.
Yeah.
That offense likes using tight ends. We saw the Harrison Barnes blow up, so he's a player that like I would drop either of these guys in an instant
And
to just go
Hooper
pick
had
up Hooper.
a great week before that surgery.
Yep.
And talking about Gesicki, another warning with him. I would say that they play a 3 tight end set there, Miami.
Yep.
And those other 2 are used in the passing game as well.
Yeah.
So that's pretty hard. It's not like Baltimore Ravens tight end passing game. There's other options on the outside. All right, Hollywood Brown.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot about it. I was about to say end of episode.
No, but yes, this is a big one.
This is one that is now. I wanted to bring it up because people will be considering this for sure, and I honestly think they should consider it. The passing volume in that offense is so low. And Lamar Jackson, not only is it low, but the quality of the targets have been bad. Like, even if he's getting a 20% market share in this offense, it's not been good production. You're basically going to need a touchdown or he's going to be a terrible play for you.
Let me throw this name out for you.
Okay.
Hollywood Brown or Brashard Perriman?
Definitely Hollywood Brown.
Hollywood Brown or Jamison Crowder? I think that's a little closer.
If you're in a PPR, I think you have to say Jamison Crowder, which is just crazy. But yeah, I think if you're deciding between those 2 players, then it would be Jamison Crowder.
It's tough. Hollywood Brown was probably drafted in the 6th round or higher.
Yeah.
So dropping that early of a draft capital, not because of injury, just because of lack of production.
Yep.
But
like, so here's one that I think would be a struggle for me. Jalen Reagor is keep talking about this coming off bye thing, but the upside of what he could be in that offense, they need a wide receiver in that offense. Volgum is fantastic, but they're a passing offense that is missing Zach Ertz. He's somebody that, that just shows you the level I'm at with Hollywood. Like, I don't think there's definitely situations where you can drop Hollywood Brown.
yeah,
So I know it's hard to hear because you probably drafted him in the 6th, 5th round, but we're there. It's just the Ravens offense is not being as efficient and throwing at a clip that you can sustain. Even, Mark Andrews is one we didn't talk about that just same thing. I mean, it's hard. You're going to need that touchdown or there's just not enough passing volume.
we got a guy in our league in Phil that's killing him right there at his wide receiver 2 and tight end spot.
Yep.
Hollywood and Mark Andrews laying eggs for him.
Come on, Lamar, please.
Come on,
Just
figure out that passing.
Yeah, let's figure it out.
All right, so that's our whole episode this week. A lot of tough questions we asked there.
Yeah.
Hopefully people,
A little bit longer one.
People are listening to us like we're giving them gold, and hopefully we didn't say the wrong things about adding guys or dropping guys.
That's the scary part of these episodes. He made the doc, so we'll blame it on Chris.
It's all on me. But anyways, guys, get out there and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Frenemies FF Pod, and then on Facebook we're there and YouTube as well. But drop in the comment section about your favorite childhood movie, TV series. And if you disagree or agree with our roster or not series and drop candidates, let us know.
Yep, and then just one last little shout out. We mentioned it before, but listen to 757. It's going to be a fun episode, doing some celeb lookalikes. Try to throw up some pictures on there so you guys can see, because I know there's other people that aren't in our league and kind of curious what these guys look like. So this might be your opportunity to see what the great Yoda David Kalana looks like.
Yes, he looks identical to Yoda. All right,
It's
guys.
celeb, no.
All right, see you guys later, man. Deuces.